Emma's hand trembled as she slid the folded napkin across the black marble table. Hidden between the white fibers of the fabric were words that could either save her or condemn her forever. "This man is my toxic ex. Be careful." On the other side of the table, Vincent Moretti, the most feared man in the city, the head of the Italian mafia who controlled every corner, every business, every breath of that underworld, watched with steel eyes the man seated across from him. Derek Harrison, the associate, the business partner, the man who smiled with perfect teeth while discussing numbers and territories, the man Emma knew far too well, the man who nearly destroyed her. Nobody knew, nobody could imagine that this 28-year-old waitress, with her impeccable uniforms and polite smile, carried invisible scars, marks that burned every time Derek entered that luxury restaurant where Vincent conducted his most important meetings. Emma never thought she would serve at the table of the man who once swore to protect her, but actually imprisoned her in a relationship of pure terror. And now there he was, seated like royalty, negotiating with the only man who could make Derek disappear with a simple snap of his fingers. But Emma knew that openly denouncing Derek would be dangerous. He had contacts, money, influence. So she chose the only possible path, warn Vincent without saying a word out loud. The napkin went unnoticed by the security guards, by the waiters, by the other clients dining in that hall illuminated by crystal chandeliers. But not by Vincent. He was a man of details, a predator who noticed every movement, every breath out of place, every glance that lasted a second too long. When his fingers touched the napkin and felt something different, something carefully folded, he knew. Vincent opened the note under the table, away from Derek's eyes, and read the words that would change everything. His dark eyes slowly rose until they met Emma's, standing a few meters away, her face pale, her hands clasped tightly together. And in that moment, Vincent understood. He saw the fear, saw the courage, saw the truth stamped in those brown eyes trying to maintain composure. If you're listening to this story, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment of what's about to happen next. Because what Emma didn't know was that Vincent Moretti wasn't just a businessman. He was a man of codes. And one of the most sacred codes in his world was simple. Those who hurt the innocent pay. Always. No exceptions, no forgiveness. Derek kept talking, gesturing with his hands, laughing at jokes only he found funny, oblivious to the fact that his sentence had just been written on a simple piece of paper. Vincent remained impassive, his face a mask of stone, but inside something was changing. He didn't know Emma, didn't know her full name, her story, her dreams, but he knew the look of someone who had suffered too much. He knew the silent desperation of someone asking for help without making a sound. And Vincent always responded to that kind of request. That's how his own father had taught him decades ago, before being betrayed by men like Derek. Emma returned to the kitchen on weak legs, her heart pounding so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. What had she done? She had placed her life in the hands of a stranger, a dangerous man, someone who could easily ignore her warning or, worse yet, tell Derek everything. She leaned against the stainless steel sink, closed her eyes and tried to breathe, but the image of Derek sitting there, so close, so confident, made her stomach turn. He hasn't changed at all, still the same, charming on the outside, poisonous on the inside, the same man who once made her believe she was lucky to have him. 2 hours earlier, when Emma arrived for the night shift, She had no idea she would find Derek there. 4 years. 4 long years since she managed to escape, since she moved to a different city, since she rebuilt her life brick by brick with hands bleeding from working 2 jobs. 4 years since the last time he pressed her against the wall of the tiny apartment they shared and told her she would never be anything without him. 4 years since she proved him wrong. But when she saw Derek entering that restaurant, wearing a $6,000 Italian suit, laughing loudly, greeting Vincent like they were old friends, Emma felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. She almost quit right then and there, almost ran out the back door and never returned, almost left behind the job she needed so badly, the salary that paid for her small apartment and her night classes in business administration. But Emma was no longer that scared 24-year-old girl Derek met at some random party. She was 28 now. She had scars, yes, but she also had strength. A strength she herself didn't know she possessed until she needed to use it. So instead of running, Emma did something that surprised even herself. She decided to fight. In the beginning, Derek was perfect, attentive, generous, protective. He paid the bills, bought gifts, said she was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Emma fell fast, dove headfirst into that relationship that seemed like a fairy tale. He was 34 and seemed to have all the answers, seemed to know exactly what to do, what to say, how to make her feel special. But protection turned into possession. Care turned into control. Love turned into prison. And when Emma tried to leave for the first time, Derek showed who he really was. The marks on her wrist took weeks to fade. The purple bruises he caused when he held her too tight, when he pushed her against the wall, when he screamed so close to her face she could feel his saliva on her skin. Emma hid everything with long sleeves, with bracelets, with well-rehearsed lies, for friends who asked if everything was okay. "I'm great," she would say, smiling. "Derek is wonderful." And she almost believed it, because Derek always apologized afterward, always cried, always promised it would never happen again, always bought flowers and said he loved her more than anything. But the marks on her soul, well, those still bled. Even 4 years later, even far from him, Emma would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night, sweating cold, hearing Derek's voice telling her she was useless, stupid, ugly, that no man would ever want her, that she should be grateful he stayed with her. Emma spent months in therapy trying to erase those voices from her head, months rebuilding the self-esteem that Derek destroyed piece by piece. And now he was there, in the restaurant, as if nothing had happened. So instead of running, Emma chose to write, chose to trust an instinct she didn't even know she still had. Something about Vincent, about the way he treated the restaurant staff with respect, about how he always thanked them when served, about how his eyes seemed to see beyond the masks people wore, made Emma believe he could be different, that he could understand, that he could help. She wrote that note with a trembling hand, folded it carefully, waited for the right moment. Vincent asked for water. Emma brought the water in a crystal glass with ice and a slice of lemon, exactly how he liked it, and along with it, hidden under the saucer, she brought the truth. Now there was no turning back. The note was in Vincent's hands, and Emma could only pray that he was the kind of man people said he was. Ruthless with enemies, but fair with the weak. A man of his word, a man of principles, even if they were principles the law didn't recognize. The night dragged on slowly, each minute feeling like an eternity. Emma served other tables, smiled mechanically, took orders, brought dishes, did her work with the precision she had learned from years of waiting tables, but her eyes always returned to that corner table where Vincent and Derek discussed business, money, territories, and percentages. Derek was animated. His gestures were broad, confident. He thought he had secured something big. A deal with Vincent Moretti meant protection, influence, easy money. Derek had always been like that, always chasing the fastest path to the top. Didn't matter who he stepped on along the way, didn't matter how many Emmas he destroyed. Vincent, on the other hand, was different. His trusted men, the two security guards who always stayed a few steps away from him, noticed the change. Lorenzo and Carlo exchanged confused glances. Vincent was too quiet, too observant. He was looking at Derek with an intensity that wasn't there before, as if he were dissecting every word, every gesture, every micro-expression. And from time to time, his eyes searched for Emma in the dining room, following her as she worked, as if he were assembling a complex puzzle in his mind. Vincent had built an empire by learning to read people. He knew when someone was lying, knew when someone was hiding something, knew when he was in the presence of a predator disguised as a lamb, and Derek Harrison had just revealed himself as something Vincent deeply despised. A liar, an abuser, a coward who used his charm and money to control weaker women. Vincent knew men like this. He had eliminated many of them over the years. And now sitting across from him was one more. When the appetizer was served, Vincent began to test Derek. Subtle questions, seemingly casual, but loaded with meaning. "Tell me about yourself, Derek. About your life before business. How do you treat the people close to you?" Derek responded with ease, building an image of himself as generous, loyal, fair. Every word was a polished lie, and Vincent knew it. He saw the falseness behind the smile, the cruelty hidden beneath the manufactured charm. Emma brought the main course, a fillet with red wine sauce that was the house specialty. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the plate in front of Derek. He didn't even look at her. Not a thank you, not an acknowledgement. To Derek, Emma was invisible, just another waitress serving his table. He didn't recognize her. 4 years, a different haircut, a few pounds lost from stress, and she had become nothing to him. Just a ghost from a past he probably didn't even remember clearly. But Vincent saw the way Emma avoided looking directly at Derek, saw the rigidity in her shoulders, the controlled breathing, the effort to maintain composure. And when Emma walked away, Vincent saw her hands close into tight fists, nails digging into palms. He saw pain, saw trauma, saw an entire story written in her body language, and that was enough. When dessert was served, Vincent finally broke the silence. "Derek," he said, his voice low and controlled, with that Italian accent that made each word sound like a judicial sentence. "Tell me about yourself. About your personal life. Are you married? Do you have family? Children?" Derek smiled, that wide, fake smile Emma knew so well. "No, I'm not married. I've had some serious relationships, you know how it is, but nothing that worked long term. I'm very focused on business. Women sometimes don't understand that, don't understand the commitment that's required." Vincent nodded slowly, but his eyes didn't waver. He saw the unspoken words, the deflected blame, the narrative constructed to make Derek seem like the victim of demanding women. "I see. And those relationships that didn't work out, did they end well? On good terms? Do you keep in touch with any ex-girlfriends?" The question caught Derek by surprise, but he masked it quickly. Ah, you know how it is. Some ended better than others, but I always tried to keep things civilized. I'm not the type who holds grudges. The lie hung in the air like toxic smoke. Vincent knew. He knew exactly what Derek was. Men like Derek always painted themselves as victims, always found ways to justify their actions, always had ready-made excuses. And in that moment, the deal between them ceased to exist. There would be no partnership, no business deal. There would only be justice. The kind of justice the legal system often failed to deliver. Vincent leaned forward, crossing his hands on the table, his eyes fixed on Derek's like a predator observing its prey. You know, Derek, I built everything I have based on one very simple principle: loyalty and respect. Loyalty to those who deserve loyalty. Respect to those who show respect. I protect those who deserve protection, and I destroy those who deserve destruction. Do you understand me? Derek nodded, a bit confused but still confident. Of course, Vincent. That's exactly how I think too. Loyalty is everything in this world. Vincent smiled, but it was a cold smile, lifeless, not reaching his eyes. Good. Then you'll understand perfectly what's about to happen now. He made an almost imperceptible signal with his head, and the two security guards approached the table, positioning themselves behind Derek. Derek looked around, confusion beginning to give way to something darker. Fear. Wait, what's happening here, Vincent? What is this? We had a deal. Vincent stood up slowly, adjusted the impeccably cut jacket of his charcoal gray suit, and looked at Derek with pure contempt. This, Derek, is what happens when you lie to the wrong person, when you hurt those you shouldn't have hurt, when you think you can fool the entire world, build a facade of a successful and respectable man while hiding the monster you really are. This is what happens when your victims find the courage to speak. Tell me in the comments, do you think Derek deserved what was about to happen? What would you do in Emma's place? Leave your opinion. I want to know what you think about men like him and about the courage it takes to report an abuser. Derek tried to stand, but a heavy hand from Lorenzo landed on his shoulder, keeping him firmly seated in the chair. Vincent, I don't know what you're talking about. There must be some mistake. Someone is lying about me. This is ridiculous. Vincent pulled the napkin from the inside pocket of his jacket, the note still folded inside it, and threw it onto the table with disdain. Read it. Derek picked up the paper with hands that were beginning to tremble, opened it slowly, and saw the words Emma had written. His expression changed instantly, passing through a rapid sequence of emotions. First, recognition. He knew that handwriting, then anger, then pure panic. This is a lie. She's lying. That crazy woman is trying to sabotage me because I broke up with her years ago. She never got over it. The word crazy echoed through the restaurant. Some clients looked discreetly. The waiters stopped what they were doing, and Emma, who was near the bar preparing a tray, felt each letter like a punch directly to her stomach. But Vincent didn't move. He just watched Derek fall apart, revealing his true nature for everyone to see, confirming everything that silent note said. Interesting, Vincent said, his voice dangerously calm, each word loaded with contained threat. You call her crazy. You say she's lying, that she never got over the relationship. But I didn't mention who wrote the note, Derek. I didn't mention any names. How do you know it was her? How do you know who we're talking about? The silence that followed was deafening. Derek realized too late he had given himself away. confirmed everything without needing a single direct accusation. His mouth opened and closed, searching for words that wouldn't come, excuses that sounded hollow even to himself. Vincent turned slowly and looked directly at Emma, who was paralyzed on the other side of the dining room, silent tears beginning to stream down her face, destroying the light makeup she wore. "Come here," Vincent said, not as an authoritarian order, but as a gentle invitation, almost paternal. Emma hesitated, her feet seeming glued to the floor, but something in Vincent's voice, something unexpectedly gentle coming from such a feared man, made her move. She crossed the dining room with slow, uncertain steps, feeling the eyes of everyone present on her, the weight of decades of shame and fear pressing on her shoulders, until she was a few meters from the table, visibly trembling, eyes fixed on the floor because looking at Derek still hurt too much. Vincent extended his hand, a large hand with scars on the knuckles, and waited. "You're safe now. Nobody will hurt you again." 3 simple words, but loaded with promise. Just 3 words. But they destroyed the walls Emma had built around her heart during 4 years of solitary reconstruction. She sobbed once, loud and painful, a sound that came from a deep place where she kept all the pain she had never shared. And then she accepted Vincent's hand, feeling the firmness, the security, the respect in that touch. Derek exploded, the facade of civilized man finally crumbling completely. "You can't do this. I have rights. I have lawyers. I have influential friends. You'll regret this, Vincent. I'll destroy you. I'll tell everyone who you really are." Vincent didn't even look at him. He kept his eyes on Emma, holding her hand firmly but without hurting her, with respect. "Lorenzo Carlo, take him out of here. I'll deal with this personally. And make sure he understands that his threats have no value whatsoever." The guards dragged Derek outside, his screams echoing through the restaurant, promising revenge, promising lawsuits, promising destruction, until they were muffled by the heavy door that closed with a final thud. The other clients gradually returned to their conversations, some uncomfortable with what they had witnessed, others fascinated by the drama that unfolded in front of them. Vincent gently led Emma to an empty table in a more private corner, carefully pulled out a chair for her, and waited patiently for her to sit down. He made a gesture to a waiter who quickly brought water and a clean napkin. "Tell me," Vincent said simply, his voice losing all the hardness it had moments ago. "Tell me everything. Take your time. I have no other appointments tonight." And Emma told. For the first time in 4 years, she told everything to someone who truly listened. The broken promises, the screams in the dead of night that neighbors ignored, the times Derek locked her in the house, taking her keys, saying it was to protect her from the dangerous world outside, the times he controlled every penny she earned, demanding receipts, accusing her of spending money on frivolous things when she bought basic hygiene products, the times he made her cancel dinners with friends, saying they had a bad influence on her, the times he checked her phone, read her messages, deleted contacts, systematically isolated her from any support network, the times he made her feel so small, so useless, so dependent on him, that Emma genuinely believed she couldn't survive alone. And finally, the night she escaped, when Derek left for a business meeting and she packed a suitcase with the bare minimum and disappeared, leaving behind everything she had built, because freedom was worth more than any material possession. Vincent listened to everything in profound silence without interrupting once, without judging, without asking invasive questions. He just listened, really listened, in the way Emma needed to be heard. When she finished, exhausted, her voice hoarse from talking and crying so much, Vincent nodded slowly. "You were braver today than many armed men, I know. Braver than soldiers who faced war, because you faced your worst fear without any weapon, without any guarantee, trusting only in an instinct and in the kindness of a stranger." Emma shook her head, still unable to accept the compliment. "I was so scared. I still am. I thought you might ignore the note or tell him or—" Vincent leaned forward, his hard eyes softening just a bit, revealing something almost human behind the mafia boss mask. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, Emma. Courage is acting despite it. It's doing the right thing when it would be much easier to stay silent. And you acted. You warned me about a dangerous man, and in doing so you saved not only yourself but possibly other women he would hurt in the future. Because men like Derek don't stop. They just find new victims." He paused, choosing his words with unusual care for someone accustomed to giving direct orders. "Derek won't bother you again. That I guarantee with my life and my reputation. But more than that, I want you to know something fundamental. There are people in this world who see the value you have. People who will protect you, not imprison you. People who will lift you up, not destroy you. You deserve respect, Emma. You deserve to be treated with dignity. You deserve to be free. Never, ever forget that." Emma couldn't speak. Tears fell freely now, wetting the white tablecloth. But they were different from the tears she had cried for years. These weren't tears of pain, but of liberation, of profound relief, of something she hadn't felt in so long she had almost forgotten what it was like. Hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the world still had good people, that justice still existed, that her suffering hadn't been in vain. The weeks that followed were a strange mixture of residual fear and wonderful discoveries. Derek disappeared completely. Nobody knew exactly where he went, but whispered rumors circulated that he had left the city in a hurry in the middle of the night with just one suitcase. Rumors circulated that he had debts he could never pay, debts to people who didn't accept excuses or delays. Rumors circulated that his reputation was systematically destroyed. Every professional contact warned about who Derek really was. Every door slammed in his face. Vincent made sure that all of Derek's businesses, all his connections, all his carefully built bridges were burned to ashes. Derek Harrison, the man who once thought he controlled everything, who thought his charm and money made him untouchable, now controlled absolutely nothing. He was reduced to insignificance, forced to start over somewhere distant, where nobody knew his name, where he had no influence, where he was just another ordinary man trying to survive. Emma, on the other hand, began to flourish in a way she didn't imagine was possible. Vincent offered her a better job, not out of pity, but because he recognized her competence, her work ethic, her ability to maintain composure, even under extreme pressure. A job at one of his most elegant establishments, a 5-star restaurant that served diplomats and international businessmen, with a salary that finally allowed her to breathe without waking up at dawn worried about overdue bills. But more than the money, Vincent ensured she was safe. Discreet security guards accompanied her when she went out at night, keeping a respectful distance but always vigilant. A private lawyer, one of the best in the city, took care of all the protective measures she needed, restraining orders, legal documents, everything properly filed in the judicial system. And Vincent, in a strange and unexpected way, became something Emma never imagined she would find. A true protector, not a controller disguised as a protector. They didn't become close overnight. Vincent was an extremely busy man, wrapped up in dangerous business, surrounded by secrets Emma didn't want to know. But from time to time, maybe once a week, he appeared at the restaurant where she worked, always at the end of the shift, always alone, or just with Lorenzo. He ordered the dish of the day, drank a double espresso, and talked with her about simple, mundane things. Movies they had watched, books they had read, places they would like to visit someday. And in each conversation, Emma saw something that other people didn't see in Vincent Moretti. Behind the fearsome reputation, behind the rumors and bloody stories, she saw a man who understood pain because he himself had suffered. She saw someone who used his immense power not to destroy the weak, but to protect them from the predators who hid among respectable society. She saw a man with a rigid code of honor in a world that seemed to have forgotten the meaning of that word. Emma began going back to therapy, but this time not to heal wounds that still bled, but to finally close them properly. She enrolled in college, resuming the business administration degree she had abandoned when Derek convinced her that studying was a waste of time. She reconnected with old friends that Derek had driven away, rebuilding bridges she thought were lost forever. She began to smile again, not the forced smile she used as a mask, but a genuine smile that reached her eyes. 6 months after that fateful night, Emma received a letter. The envelope was simple, with no return address, but she recognized the handwriting immediately. Her heart raced, her hands trembled. For a moment, she considered tearing the letter without reading it, throwing it in the trash, and pretending it never existed. But something stronger made her open it. Curiosity, perhaps, or the need to see if Derek would finally understand what he had done. Inside the letter, written in handwriting that seemed less firm, less confident than Emma remembered, were words of apology, words of profound regret, pleas for forgiveness. Derek admitted everything, every lie, every scream, every moment of cruelty. He wrote about how losing absolutely everything made him finally look in the mirror and see the monster he had become. How being forced to start from zero, without money, without friends, without anything, made him understand a fraction of what he put Emma through. He didn't ask to come back, didn't ask for reconciliation. He only acknowledged that Emma deserved a better life, a life without him. He said he was in therapy too, trying to understand why he became what he became, trying to break patterns his own father had taught him. He said he would dedicate the rest of his life trying to be a better person, knowing he could never undo the harm he caused, but hoping at least not to cause more. Emma read the letter 3 times. On the first reading, she felt anger that it took Derek losing everything to finally see the truth. Anger that so many women before her probably suffered at his hands. Anger that the system never properly punished him. On the second reading, she felt a heavy sadness for the time lost, for the years she spent rebuilding herself alone, for the scars she would always carry. On the third reading, she felt something different. Indifference. Derek's words simply didn't matter anymore. Emma carefully folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, not to keep as a treasure, but to remember where she came from and how far she had walked. Then, for the first time since receiving that envelope, She smiled, because she realized something fundamental. Derek no longer had power over her. His words didn't hurt her. His apologies didn't change anything. She had truly moved on, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically. She was truly free. Derek's forgiveness wouldn't change anything about the past. It wouldn't heal the scars he left. It wouldn't bring back the years she lost living in constant fear, sleeping with one eye open, measuring every word before speaking. It wouldn't bring back the confident, dreamy 24-year-old Emma who believed in fairy tales. But Emma realized she didn't need that forgiveness. She didn't need Derek to acknowledge the harm he did to validate her pain. She already knew. She always knew. Emma did something Derek never did for her. She chose to move forward without dragging the heavy chains of the past. She built a new life, solid, surrounded by people who genuinely respected her, people who saw her as a complete human being, not as a possession or trophy. She returned to studying with renewed dedication, discovering she loved numbers, planning, strategy. She pursued her dreams with a determination that only those who have lost everything and rebuilt from scratch can have. Emma graduated 2 years later with academic honors, an achievement she celebrated with tears of pure joy. Vincent was there at graduation, sitting discreetly at the back of the auditorium, a bouquet of white flowers beside him. He didn't make a speech, didn't draw attention to himself, just waited at the end to congratulate her, shake her hand and say, "Your father would be proud." Emma had never told him about her deceased father, but somehow Vincent knew. He always knew. The relationship between them remained strange to define. It wasn't romantic, although some people speculated. It wasn't paternal, although Vincent was 20 years older than her. It was something unique, forged on that night when a note hidden in a napkin changed 2 lives forever. It was mutual respect. It was recognition between 2 people who understood pain, survival, and the importance of protecting those who cannot protect themselves alone. Vincent continued being Vincent, feared in criminal circles, respected even by those who wished to see him destroyed, relentless with enemies and traitors. But for Emma, for the employees he treated well, for the ordinary people who occasionally crossed his path asking for help, he was something more. He was proof that even in the darkest shadows, where dangerous men do business that society prefers to ignore, there still exists a code of honor. There still exists justice, even if it's not the justice of the courts. Emma eventually became manager of the restaurant where it all began. Ironic, perhaps, that the place where she had to serve her abuser became the place where she built her most successful career. But Emma reframed that space, transformed painful memories into reminders of strength. Every time she passed by the black marble table where she left that note, she remembered not the fear she felt, but the courage she found. She also began doing volunteer work, helping women in situations of domestic violence. Emma understood better than anyone how hard it is to leave, how fear paralyzes, how shame silences. She shared her story in support groups, not to receive pity, but to show that survival is possible, that rebuilding is possible, that there is life, good, full life after trauma. 3 years after that night, Emma was closing the restaurant when Vincent showed up unexpectedly. He looked tired, older somehow, the weight of decades of difficult decisions marked in deep lines around his eyes. He sat at the bar, accepted the coffee Emma prepared without a word, and stayed in silence for a long moment. Finally he spoke. "You saved more than just yourself that night, Emma. You reminded me why I do what I do, why all of this is worth it. Emma didn't answer immediately. She just sat next to him, two survivors from different worlds united by a shared moment of courage. "You gave me hope when I had none," she finally said. "You showed me there are still people who care, who act, who protect. We saved each other, Vincent, each in our own way." They stayed there in the dim light of the empty restaurant. Two unlikely individuals with an unlikely connection, both understanding that the night 3 years earlier had changed them permanently. Emma would never again be the naive girl who met Derek. Vincent would never again be just the cold, calculating mafia boss everyone feared. They had become something more. Symbols that kindness can exist in the most unexpected places, that justice sometimes comes from unlikely hands, that courage can begin with a simple note hidden in a napkin. Derek never came back. Rumor said he was somewhere in South America, working ordinary jobs, living modestly, still in therapy, trying to become a better version of himself. Emma didn't know if she believed that, didn't know if she cared. Derek had become a distant past, a lesson learned, a closed chapter. She rarely thought about him, and when she did, it wasn't with pain or anger, but with quiet indifference. Emma's true victory wasn't Derek's fall. It was rebuilding herself. It was looking in the mirror and liking the person she saw reflected back. It was sleeping in peace without nightmares, without jolts awake. It was opening her heart to true friendships, to the possibility of healthy love in the future, to dreams that went beyond mere survival. It was living, not just existing. It was blooming, not just resisting. And whenever Emma trained a new employee at the restaurant, whenever she saw some subtle sign that someone was suffering in silence, she remembered that night. She remembered the note, remembered the choice she made to ask for help instead of suffering alone. And she encouraged other people to do the same, to find the courage to speak up, to report, to not carry burdens alone. Because this story is not just about revenge or punishment. It's not just about a mafia boss who defended a waitress. It's about the transformative power of asking for help, even when it feels impossible. It's about recognizing that you deserve more than crumbs of respect and attention. It's about understanding that your voice, no matter how shaky and scared, has immeasurable value. Emma could have stayed silent that night. She could have served the table with her head down and her heart broken, pretending she didn't recognize Derek, pretending everything was fine. She could have finished her shift, gone home, and cried alone one more time. But she chose differently. She chose to write those simple but powerful words. "This man is my toxic ex. Be careful." She chose to trust a stranger, chose to fight even while scared, even while trembling, even without guarantees. And those words, that simple act of courage, saved her life and possibly other lives as well. If this story touched your heart in any way, if you know someone who desperately needs to hear it, if you yourself have gone through something similar and need hope, consider subscribing to this channel and staying with this community. Think about leaving a comment sharing what part of Emma's journey spoke the loudest to you, or what you would say today to someone who still feels trapped in a toxic relationship. Your words might be the lifeline someone else needs. Share this video with someone who needs to know that it is never too late to seek help, never too late to break free from toxic relationships, never too late to rebuild from zero. Emma did it. She walked away from a relationship that almost destroyed her and built a life that fills her with pride. You can too. Your friend can. Your sister can. Anyone can, with the right support, with courage, and with the willingness to take that first frightening step toward freedom. And remember this fundamental truth: somewhere, somehow, there will always be someone willing to hear your silent cry for help. There will always be a Vincent willing to use their power to protect, not to oppress. Sometimes all you need is the courage to write those words on a napkin and place them in the right hands. Because in the end, justice does not come only from courtrooms or laws written in old codes. It comes from real people who decide to do the right thing, even when it is dangerous, even when it is hard, even when the whole world tells them to stay quiet and not get involved. Emma found her voice after years of being silenced. Vincent listened when few would have listened. And Derek paid the price he had owed for a long time, not with physical violence, but with the loss of everything he valued: power, influence, reputation, control. This is the story of how a simple note changed 3 lives forever. The story of how courage can be born from despair. The story of how you, yes, you listening, can be the next Emma who finds strength to break free, or the next Vincent who uses their power to protect someone vulnerable. Never underestimate the power of a small act of courage. Never doubt the impact your words can have when given to the right person. And never ever accept less than you deserve in a relationship. You deserve respect. You deserve dignity. You deserve to be free, just like Emma, just like every person who found the courage to leave, to report, to start over. You are not alone. Help exists, and your life is worth living fully, without fear, without chains, without abusers controlling your every step.